Call to order the October 5th, 2023 meeting of the Trails and Greenways Committee for Newtown Township. I'll start with roll call. Present.
Stephanie here. Stephanie's present.
Here.
Falcon.
Absent.
Dr. Archer. And Joe. Mark Carr.
You know if he's on, Heather? Okay, absent.
Perfect.
Present.
There we go.
Oh, Mark's here.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
we have 6.
Good job.
You have somebody that's on by telephone.
It might be Joe.
You-
Joe, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Gotcha.
So this is Joe. Falcon.
Right. Hey.
Okay, thank you. All right, if I've asked everybody for a moment of silence, please. Okay, if everybody would please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, public comment for agenda items only. We don't have anybody from the public joining us today, so move on to item number 6. And consider approving the minutes from the September 7th meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting?
Where were the minutes? They weren't online.
They got emailed out. You didn't get them?
Okay, I might have missed them then.
I don't know, Mr. Neese. What's the protocol? Is there, I mean, can we review them in meeting now, like really quick? Like, how do you do that?
Somebody can review them if they wish to. How many people did not receive the minutes?
I may not have, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm double checking.
They were not attached.
I could have swore, I mean, I know, I could, maybe you just sent them to me then? Maybe I saw them when, as you sent them on to the township. That's what it was.
No,
They're on one of the versions. I was
They are? Okay, good.
I get so much stuff on it, I might have missed it.
They are linked here in the agenda tonight.
Yeah,
Okay.
September 7th minutes right here, so if people wanna.
Yeah, I went on today.
All right, well, then here's what I would recommend. If people haven't had a chance to review them, you could just postpone the approval of the minutes till the next meeting. And
Okay.
then we'll put it on the agenda as a double.
okay.
We approved the agenda. So I'm gonna recommend that you take a step back. I don't think you've approved the agenda for tonight.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think
Thank you.
we skip that step.
Thank you. Okay. Item number 4, considering approving the agenda for tonight.
And since we're going to do that, we're going to go ahead and approve the agenda, then we'll get down to the minutes and we'll table that until your next meeting. So just
Absolutely.
so you understand the steps we're going to take.
Absolutely. Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Motion to approve tonight.
Approved.
Second.
Okay. Motion approved, seconded. I do a vote for that, sir?
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm out of it today. Votes, ayes to approve. Aye.
Aye.
Hearing any opposed? No? Okay, ayes have it. Agenda is approved. Moving on. Again, public items, nobody's here. Move on then to 6, and we're going to table that till next meeting, until people have time to review the minutes from the 7th of September. That'll be in the items for next agenda, so kind of put that there. Item number 7.1, we'll start. Update and possible action regarding past and future trail walks. First up is the Willistown Conservation Trust, Kirkwood Preserve. Erin?
That's.
Okay. Oh, okay, all right. I had my notes in there from Kirkwood from last meeting, so that's why I put that in there.
So
Okay.
that's not- There are 2 walks prior to this. One is Saturday. Walk is there. 4 of them. I do want to mention. For.
Do I have the date wrong in the?
Yeah.
And I thought I did. I'm looking at that. What's the proper date?
The third walk.
It's the
is-
November 11th, right?
It-
What is it?
Harvest Festival is
The 14th. Okay. I have the date wrong in there, so I wanted just to make sure I fixed that. Okay.
and the rain date is the 15th. I will not be able to make it, which Giselle knows. So if it rains and someone else wants to jump in,
Okay.
it would be helpful.
So are there any things that we can use as props?
But we don't know.
I'm sure we can get you a table. That's, I mean, like if we're just looking for a table, but are you wanting something specific with it? No,
Just
the
not
table?
the table we had at the farmer's market because it didn't
Yeah.
fold like in half, so it was like,
Well, I don't have any that don't fold. in
oh,
half.
really?
All
Is there a
of ours
possibility of a
do.
tent?
Huh?
If
We
we get
can-
a tent,
We can get you the tent, we can get you a table, we just,
We
We-
don't have a half full.
we don't have a half folding table.
They're all the long lines. Okay.
What do you want?
Well, I have a wedding that day, so I'm wondering if I'm even gonna be able to go. I mean, maybe with the time of it, but just depends on how mad my wife is at me for being gone during that, but point being is getting the table there, getting it out and all that. Without somebody that has a big enough vehicle, would be a problem.
I have a table that we could. I might be doing some arts and crafts on it the night before, so I can't guarantee it's gonna be pristine clean, but it should be working.
I'll bring. Cooler. And, whatever collateral.
Is this, I don't mean to interrupt you, I'm sorry. Is this supposed to be the shared table of the different committees?
I thought it originally was going to be a shared. I now understand. Yes. So, that's-
Okay,
Are you taking the table over?
I haven't been asked to take a table over for the EAC. I know the Historic Commission chose not to participate because they didn't have enough staff to support it. So, I mean, but I guess the question is, I mean, we could probably get a tent and a table over. I just have to figure out how we get them back afterwards.
Yeah, that was the issue last time and I ended up grabbing them, but they were pretty heavy, hard to move around and obviously need a big vehicle. I put them on the roof of mine, so.
Yeah, I mean, they will definitely fit in one of the township vehicles that I have, but.
Those were good.
All right, then, if you want to do it, let me work on it. What time are they wanting it set up by?
10-ish, because, stuff has to be ready. Walk start. First
What
walk
t-
is usually most populated. So we want. And I mean, I will send you what you. They've instructed. The walk.
Okay. Yeah, just get that and then I'll see if I can't get somebody to take care of it.
Provide. Make the circle.
Okay, last item under 7.1 was related to the walks was, I think last month we had talked about the solicitor was working on a waiver potentially. What's the status of that, sir?
He's been on vacation, so I don't have an
Okay.
update at this time.
Got a little
When
bit.
is-
That's. November 1. Actually,
They're both good.
Okay, all right, thank you. Get my notes right. Okay, 7.2, discussion of possible action regarding trails and Greenway social media posts. Last month was me. It did not get posted. At least up until a couple days ago when I sent it to
Who did you send it to?
you and Steve Bradley.
Well, I apologize. I've been out most of the month.
Okay.
Off and on, death in the family, and then I was out at a conference, and Steve left the middle of the month. So I
Yep.
don't know when you sent it. So
I sent it the day after our meeting, so I guess that would have been like the 8th, Friday the
Okay.
8th, but I will.
we'll get it posted.
So valid.
Yeah, yeah. Social media post for September, yeah, September 8th. And I will hit forward to you real quick, sir. Is there anybody else you'd like me to copy?
I'd like to see a copy.
You were copied, I thought. Maybe not. I'll send. it to you.
So going forward, Jamie.
Yep.
Forster, am I saying that right?
Forster,
Is who it needs to go to.
Heather, do you know her email offhand?
It's Forrester J@Newtown
That's
Township.
it. Got it. Thank you.
So in the notes, we're going to say that the first identification will be then for October. So Anthony's post from last month.
We'll get it posted now.
Yeah,
So
just,
whatever you want it, whatever you
well,
want.
we can do multiple. It doesn't really matter. So
You can
with
do
Beth-
more than
Beth-
one, but
Yeah,
we'll get
Beth
it.
wrote one up, so we'll just send both of them and they can post them, spread them out if we need to. That's fine.
And I guess I'm one coming up next. I'm gonna do mine on Hawks.
Correct. Right,
Did you
for-
say
I
you just
forward-
resent that to me?
Yeah, I just did. Might take a second. I just forwarded the old email, added Jamie
Right.
and John to it there. Okay, so that Heather, sorry, Beth, wrote the one for this month. I know you had sent it to me ahead of time. I have a copy here, so
There's two errors.
if you,
Small minor ones that where I just need to put a word in and put an R at the end of another word, and then it should be good to go. But basically it's for photographers. Photographer Appreciation Month is October. So it's like, hey, photographers over the last 100 years have really impacted how we look at nature and how we look at nature, how we feel about nature, and then how we ultimately conserve nature. And just encouraging people to go out and see what's around in our backyard and possibly post pictures that they may be taking on the post in the comments of Facebook.
Yeah,
And then there's a couple pictures that I took the township or within the township. Here's your inspiration. Go do your thing.
yeah, I mean, the modern conservation movement was originally people doing sketches and articles and sending them into publications so that people could envision in theory, like
That's
what
how
Yosemite looked like, what
Yellowstone.
like Yellowstone looked
Yeah.
like, and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's a good point. Photography's definitely changed it.
This is really great, though.
Thanks.
Okay, so you're gonna send to Jamie as well?
Yeah, I'll send
So
it out. I
force-
just want to make
force
sure
me to
everyone was
have it.
cool with it before I did.
And you were already emailing with her, I think, right? Didn't you?
No.
You were copied on some of the communication, but if not, I'll forward you the email
Yes.
address now.
Yeah, I'd like that too.
Yeah, Okay.
Sorry, there's been a lot of
Yep.
emails. It's just a blur at this point.
and then John, like you said, you're doing the next one, so.
Yep.
You're gonna discuss Hawks,
Yep.
have a write-up, and then I'm assuming then you could send it to us prior to next meeting, or we can discuss it next meeting, and then.
Yeah,
forward it
I'll
on.
get it to you prior.
Okay,
Now, it's the month, is it Raptors or Hawks?
it's
October's Raptor Month.
it's Raptor month,
Okay,
but
I can
yeah.
expand that.
Just on the radar for November 17th is National Hiking Day. Easy post.
Okay, so that's the next item on the topic, new posts at least every month, but it sounds like we've got a few right now, which is good, so. For November, who wants to volunteer to do the next one?
I thought John was gonna.
No, I was
Well-
October.
Everything kind of got pushed, but we were saying we don't have to keep it to one a month. Obviously, we were saying we could do multiple, and that's kind of what led to that. So,
Yeah, John and I were supposed to be doubling up this month and then.
correct,
Anthony's was supposed to be in September. So there's just maybe 3. this
in
month.
October, which is fine. And then in November, that's just a good topic if somebody wants to hit that,
And
so.
then
yeah.
Black Friday is opt outside. 2 that are easy for our town or for our.
Eric, do you think Joe would like to do one? Never.
Hey, he's a lawyer. He can write.
Joe Falcon.
Oh, well, yeah, I was thinking Joe Kasuka, but yeah,
Oh.
Joe Falcon definitely.
It's all involved.
Joe Falcon, what do you think?
I already have one, but yeah, I can tailor it to November or December, whatever works.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, next one, Joe, sorry about what you're dealing with right now. I don't know if you've got anything at the moment for the e-bikes regulation 7.3. Just wanted to make sure. that
Yeah,
we-
I don't have anything this week, just based off some personal things going on. So, my expectations is to come up with some complementary or, sample regulations that are in other, I don't want to say municipalities because they're probably gonna be outside the state of Pennsylvania, but sort of look at, the model rules that other people have, sort of introduce it and then have a discussion from there.
Great. Just on the note of it, I don't know if it's just because we had this conversation last month. Or I was just extra paying attention to it, but I actually noticed a few e-bike riders in our town.
Hmm.
There's one guy that I've seen a couple times that I guess commutes every day, and I actually just saw him earlier, just on my way here. And I've seen him multiple times, and then I've just been noticing it more and more often. Maybe again, because I'm attuned to it now, because we were talking about it. But there are definitely a few people, if not several, who have them in the township that I keep seeing just in the past month that are doing it. So I think it's appropriate and glad Joe brought it up because who knows what that landscape will look like when those bikes start becoming more affordable, if the Fed passes that rebate law. There was some there was like a tax abatement law or tax rebate law that was supposed to go in. They were trying to treat it like electric car purchases, same thing, like trying to do that. So who knows how affordable they're gonna be, and then they're probably gonna pop it. So that's all. Just wanted to bring that up. Okay. Any other comments on 7.3? Any questions, anything? It looks like Joe's gonna try and compile some sample regulations, as he mentioned, and then we'll wait to hear back. So we'll put that, I guess, on the meeting, Erin, for next month as well. Okay, all right, we'll move on to 7.4, potential zoning improvements discussion. Erin, I know you had already, after I sent the agenda and everything, you had said that you
I
were,
have not started
yeah.
this conversation yet, and Steve, my suggestion might be that I, at some point, reach out to Rose and maybe can have a conversation with you about current Newtown Township zoning.
Yeah, we can do that. I would suggest maybe also bringing Andy, our zoning officer, into that conversation.
Do you, Anthony, have in mind any specifics of information that we need to know on this committee with regard to the zoning? I mean, we're talking about zoning improvements. I'm gonna need to get just a baseline
So-
background on where we are with zoning. And
Yeah.
what are our thoughts?
so based on the meeting we had last month, and please, anybody speak up if I mischaracterize or misremember what we discussed last month and why this topic came up. I brought it up in the monthly review of the plan and the zoning in general. And then really, I think Mr. Nish had mentioned about how when the zoning kind of regulations were brought up, what the outlook is supposed to be, what they're supposed to be used for. And then we started talking about certain things like offsets from streams and different things during, for any general development work. So really, I guess it pertains to how do we use the vehicle of zoning regulation and possible modifications to them to help the mission, right? So kind of some of it, I guess, was there any change with the Shade Tree Commission to the zoning rules, or was that just a whole separate ordinance that was thrown in? That didn't get rolled in,
a
right?
separate ordinance that piggybacked. At the time, it piggybacked on the land development ordinance
Okay,
that has some stuff. But I would think that the focus would be, I mean, you have two areas that you
Yeah.
want to focus on, right? Is open space. And so how do we preserve the open space? And two, guessing that's what you're looking for. The second thing that I would focus on is how we guarantee walkability, particularly when we look at development that's happening or redevelopment that would be happening within the town. And in some areas, we might focus more on trails versus other areas, we might focus more on sidewalk. And so I think that we could look at our areas and kind of look for those connecting points.
so I guess I would say then, you're talking about like residential zoning, modifying the residential zoning might include sidewalks. If you're referring to residential, or not residential, commercial areas, you might have sidewalks on frontages, but allocations for maintaining some of the green space or having trails. If those big, large properties are being developed, but streams and stuff like that, having the offsets be a bigger concern, because then those offsets could potentially provide the avenues for a trail that goes along them that's low impact, that keeps the major development impervious surfaces away from that kind of stuff. Does that sound about right, sir?
Yeah, that's the idea. I mean,
Yeah,
like.
that's the
I mean, like,
overarching-
for an example, I mean, we've been we've been pushing sidewalks with any land development, but I've also had a couple conversations with folks where we've said trails were a good option if we didn't do that. And we have one right now. I think you guys have reviewed it. The one down on Sawmill, we asked for a trail easement, even though we don't have, even though there's nothing to it right now. I mean, it would connect over to the Radnor property, but there's no other connection within our township. But we're asking for that today, hoping for the future along the way. And so those are the kind of things that we need to be doing.
I thought the way that property was broken up, we didn't actually see an area to put that. Or am I misremembering that, John?
Well, there are a couple of different ones. There's a one that would go
Well,
from
there-
Sawmill, but there's also the possibility of an easement up at the top of the property.
Yeah, and I think the one at the top
Maybe
of the
that's what it
property,
was.
it wasn't as easy, but the one at the long Sawmill was the one that they were willing to do.
Yeah, that was like the second one we reviewed
Mhm.
quite some time ago now, so.
Yeah.
I know you brought that up. That was getting in front of the planning commission or something recently, last week.
It was in front of, it was a week ago, I think. Last Thursday.
Yeah,
Okay.
they'll be back in November. Okay. All right, well, maybe we can join that. Just to give extra support for that cause. Okay. So Erin, to sum up the
Yeah, I
answer
got
to
it.
your original
I
question.
got it.
No, but just for everybody else,
Yeah.
how the different zoning areas can be better improved sidewalks for residential and offsets easements for the more open space areas and resident, they're not commercial, I'm sorry, commercial developments, so that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything more they want to bring up? Anybody online, Mark or Joe, regarding zoning improvements discussion?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay.
Nothing for me.
I do have.
Yep,
one,
go ahead.
and it's sort of my little soapbox that I get
Mike.
on. Green space, thinking of green space and all the ways to keep green space healthy, that would include light pollution. I know that is something that's sort of been talked about a little bit, but can we also look at light ordinances and how they may affect our green spaces that we have?
Yeah, I mean, it falls under that preservation of green space. One of the things that in the larger properties that we're trying our best to preserve from development, one of the things that a lot of township residents have mentioned, Terry, at the farmer's market, they mentioned to me, a couple other trail walks, was we get that people have the right to develop these properties, right? But why do they have to clear cut them to then only come back and plant a few measly trees? Why can't they leave the natural buffer between the road and the development? Why do they have to do that? So that's something that could come into effect huge is, and also dealing with light pollution, is that if they're adding a lot of light, then if you have a big property and you have a lot of trees and vegetation through there, do you have to clear cut it? Because all that light's going to pass through, and you planting however many trees now where there's all this gap and space in between, it'll take decades upon decades for maybe that to fall through. And usually it's much more like landscape than anything versus the more natural dense vegetation.
And
So
I'm thinking more for like commercial properties rather. than
yeah,
individual
no, I know
houses.
what you're thinking. Yeah, I mean, I'm saying in the larger properties that have that room.
Yeah.
They're already forcing them in many cases to keep the actual structures very far away from the roadways and different things like that. And the green space is another thing. So thinking about those offsets and leaving some of that to reduce that light pollution for everybody, for the residents, for the actual natural inhabitants in the wildlife corridors. I mean, that's something that could definitely be looked at, I would imagine. Anybody else have anything on that?
We talked about it at a
We did.
prior meeting,
We
and
did. That's why
I
she-
I thought that it was under the purview of another committee.
I think it could dabble with EAC, but again, I think with green spaces, we tend to think of just the ground, but we forget about the sky that goes along with the green space. We tend to just focus here instead of like the whole column going up And that's where I kind of see the light pollution is focusing on that whole, like, green space includes the sky above it. And, you know, making sure that birds and bats and all the critters that we're making the trees and plants there for actually can navigate to it safely without being, you know, disoriented by bright light.
It's definitely a crossover, but we've said that before. There's a lot of things that cross over with EAC related to space.
I think the focus should come from the EAC, but I think that you guys can take information to them and help them
Yeah.
move that forward.
Okay. All right, hearing no more on 7.4, move on to 7.5. For the first time on our agenda, discussion of the official trail map. Did I write that? I didn't write that.
I didn't.
No, official, it should say official township.
Well, official
map.
map.
Yeah,
Is it
official township
designation?
map is what it should say. Could have sworn that's what I said. Anyways, that's it. That's a typo. Anyways, Mr. Neese, have you had any luck discussing with the board of supervisors having individual meetings yet?
I have not.
Okay.
Am I having the individual meetings or are you?
You
having-
had requested that we go and do that, so we would have it with them. If you want to
Yeah.
be there, then absolutely, but you had said to bring it through you. So after last meeting, I mentioned to you to, now we're ready to have that
Okay.
discussion with them.
Okay,
So officially, yeah, we're ready to have the discussion. with
all right. So we'll set up those meetings.
Yes, please, thank you. And obviously, you know, like, I wanted to try my best to get everything in front of them before like the holidays and everybody gets busy and distracted and everybody's busy as it is right now. It's the last thing they're probably looking for is another meeting, but we'll try, do our best to be quick about it. Okay. Just in general, so then bring it up now for the rest of the committee. From the very beginning, we had kind of started a subcommittee to talk about this is the official township map. Other townships have it. Basically, it's a vehicle for the township to be able to negotiate. I believe what is standard has been a year with any developers on any landowner looking to develop pieces of land that,
Right to negotiate for
Right.
a year.
thank you. Right to negotiate for a year, to try to make a deal. That could be purchasing the property entirely, which we know is obviously difficult, but it's an avenue, or getting some sort of easement or agreement, or even a small portion of the property, be able to put in trails. So this is a way, we had the conversation in the last two meetings that when I went over the review of the plan, is that they're dwindling. The number of properties available are dwindling for green spaces. And the avenues of where we put on our map to show where these trail connections go, this is a possible way that we can get that done. Because if people want to develop along those areas, this at least puts the township in a good, you know, negotiating position, at least be at that negotiating table. We're not, you know, foolish here thinking that everything's going to work out perfectly, but this is definitely something that could help and hopefully slow down what, at least from the perception of, at least if I speak for myself and most of this committee and a lot of township residents have come up to us as like kind of a development onslaught over recent years that is concerning everybody. Obviously, that's one of the reasons why this committee was created, so.
Yeah, in 2007, it was up for final township supervisor vote. And it was turned down. And I think as a result of that being turned down, this township has suffered quite a bit. So we need to get it done soon.
Great. So John and myself, and Joe Falcon, and then recently, since we had the reorganization and Beth got brought in, and Erin, I've mentioned it to both of them, and Beth had sat in on one of our more recent meetings where we discussed it. So essentially what we did was identified a lot of properties that have green space and connectivity options on them for the trails that we're already showing.
Mhm.
So a lot of these properties were already identified in our network plan that was published back in 2020. So it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. A lot of these properties are already on there. Many of them have already been developed, unfortunately, but we've identified some more. All of these have some strategic reason they're on there because we show a trail connection through there, or we show this as valuable green space. So,
Or it's continuous to an existing township property.
correct. That's right, to existing parks and stuff like that, which a lot of the planned trails that we are having are also through those areas where they're connecting to Township Park, so. Anyways, that's something that we're hoping to have the conversation with the township representatives. Once we do, we're gonna edit that plan and then we bring it officially in front of everyone in the committee to review and then vote on whether or not we want to say, yes, this is the final version of which we want to propose. So that's kind of the loose plan. It's been something that John and I especially put a lot of work into. John, way before any of us were ever here. And then me a lot recently over the past 2 years. So that's kind of it. Anybody else have any questions on that at the time? No? Okay, so we'll wait to hear back from you, Mr. Neese.
Okay.
Item 7.6, discussion of reopening the rail trail conversation status. So we had been told that was a possibility. And Erin, I don't know. I know you
went
had
to the real trail conversations.
Joe
I don't
Falcon.
know of any.
It's resting in my spot now. I have still 2 things to chase down before we can get started again.
Okay, is there any idea, sir, estimate on when that group might be reopened? We talking New Year?
I don't know at this
Okay.
point. There's a funding issue I have to address, and until I get that addressed, I don't know.
Okay. All right, on to 7.7, update on the parking lot at the Meadow Preserve. In progress with the solicitor. Anything on that?
Yes,
Yes.
we had a meeting with, PennDOT, the township engineer, and George Garrett's, to discuss using the driveway that Episcopal owns to access the, Meadow Preserve and potentially build, 8-space parking area there. And the representative from PennDOT, measurements, has some ideas about sight lines that we need in order to have traffic coming out of that existing driveway. And I wrote up the minutes, put down kind of, what we discussed, and Steve can certainly contribute his thoughts from the meeting. But the next steps are, there's some foliage on the shoulder that obscures the sight line when you're coming out of the driveway and looking left, where the traffic merges from the St. David's
The circle.
Episcopal Circle.
Yep.
It's a wall, right?
And there's a tree there, and then there's a lot of foliage on the shoulder that obscures the sight line. If that's a 45-mile-an-hour zone, you need 390 feet of sight line. And so one of the next steps would be for us to meet with Episcopal and talk to them about taking that tree down and removing that foliage so that we have the sight lines. In terms of the approvals that would be necessary for us to be a co-applicant with Episcopal to put a median up that doesn't allow a left-hand turn from 252, to put signage up and, safety barricades that keep traffic from making a left-hand turn into that driveway when we do build this parking lot. That we have a lot to discuss, and I think there's several things we need to do in terms of getting agreement with Episcopal that they want to be a co-applicant in putting the median up and allowing access to the driveway. We have some steps that we need to take, I think, before we apply for PennDOT to do the work.
Well, let me just clarify. PennDOT won't do the work. It'll be the township. And so what we've asked the engineer to do is go ahead and start to get some reasonable price quotes. When I say that, not that the price quote itself will be reasonable, but the idea that we'll have a good estimate of what it would be for us to do what needs to be done. George and I've done a little bit of talking about it. afterwards. I really do think that we probably will want to do, there's a, what do they call it, George? The ones with the.
Quick curb,
Huh?
quick curb.
The quick curb kind of approach. Yeah, and then there's also a mountable curb that we're looking at. One is probably over $100,000. The other's probably closer to 20 or 30. And so we're looking, once we get a little bit better numbers and know what that is, then we can start looking at what it would take to put an application together and actually do it and go before. We need to go back before EAC, have their conversation, or not EAC, I'm sorry, Episcopal Academy, go back before with them, have the conversation with them. But I'd like to have some dollars before I do that, or at least some estimates before I do that, so that I can have the kind of conversation that needs to be had.
So, pardon my ignorance. Can you remind me? So what is PennDOT? Is PennDOT just acting as advisor to this, or is there actual approval permitting that needs to go?
Oh,
through
there's
that?
an approval
There is?
permitting. If you can't go and do work on a PennDOT road without PennDOT approving it.
Okay,
And so where we're looking at is on 252. What we want to make sure is if we're going to encourage people going in and out of that driveway, we want to make sure that we have some discouragement of people making
the illegal left.
correct, making an a left in and or out.
Yep.
From that location.
So where does the PennDOT road end? It's just off the shoulder of 252, correct? Or is that, who owns the driveway?
Well, the driveway is owned by Episcopal, which the township has full rights and access to.
Okay.
There's no
Township has an
question,
easement.
that part, that we have an easement,
Okay,
that there's no question about that.
Okay.
PennDOT feels that because the property is owned by Episcopal, they would want Episcopal to be a co-applicant with us.
okay,
We'll work through that and I'll deal with that on whatever area I need to. But what we're trying to do is put together a reasonable understanding of what the cost estimate is before we go and start having a lot more conversations. So that, one, I make sure the board of supervisors is in agreement. Whoever puts this in, whether it's the township or whether it's Episcopal, they're going to be the ones responsible for maintaining it. Just putting it in, even though it's on a PennDOT road, it becomes the responsibility for us to maintain it. And so those will be the steps that we have to work through. And so there's a little bit of homework we have to do on our end before we're ready to take the next step. And so, but we're going to work on that, get that.
all right, so just so I have it clear, so you have 252, you have the driveway, which is approved, which is owned by Episcopal, but we have an easement and right of access to go down. And then the parking lot of which we're putting in, that's solely on township property.
That's correct.
And does that in particular have anything to do with the application, or is it all the fact that we're encouraging additional traffic with the 252 portion? You're essentially like encouraging a more densely used intersection, really. Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, from PennDOT's perspective, we're adding traffic to
Yeah.
an area that currently is, as they're seeing it, is just a basic driveway.
Yeah,
They're
Okay.
not looking at it as an entrance, and Episcopal doesn't use it as an entrance.
Yep.
We all know that Episcopal does have events and people park there. That's a whole different issue. PennDOT would not have approved that. It's what became clear at the meeting. And so we're going through and making sure that we get PennDOT approval to do what we need to do.
Is the major issue sightline?
The biggest issue is sightline, but also they understand very clearly what our safety concerns are, and they agree to that.
Okay, also, where the excess road comes into Episcopal, is that on 252 itself, or is that on the entrance? There's a road going by that intersects with 252.
Yeah,
coming out of
that's a
Episcopal.
great question, whatever you call that.
yeah,
Yeah.
What you call that
And that
entrance.
probably isn't a PennDOT road. That's
It is a PennDOT road,
it
the
is.
access road?
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So that's the issue.
Okay.
And so that's what we're working through.
I would contest that.
I drove by and saw what I thought was a town vehicle in that long driveway. Who does the maintenance for it now?
The maintenance of the road, the driveway itself, Episcopal Academy. I don't think we do anything that I know of.
Well,
there.
the township could have gone down there to simply access the Meadow Preserve, right?
Well,
Mowers, right? Don't they go
I
down?
mean, you
there?
may have driven by in the day that we were
I
there.
was
We
gonna
had-
say, we,
We had
I've seen
multiple,
township vehicles back there just looking at
Oh.
different things in the parking lot.
yeah, so, I mean, we've been back there and we go back there regularly with mowers and things like that to take care of the land, but Episcopal is actually the one that's maintaining the road at this point. Obviously, if we start adding traffic, we'll probably pick up additional responsibility.
That's what I was gonna wonder was, are there any other things going on with this initial project or in the upcoming maintenance regarding that driveway, including like, retopping the asphalt, striping, that kind of stuff?
Here's what I want to say. Our goal is not to make this drive. I want to keep it kind of rustic as it is in my mind. I
Absolutely.
mean, obviously, we need to maintain it and help maintain it going forward. The goal is not to make this, like, I don't see striping it. I don't see any of those things. I want it's a driveway. And we want to keep it as a driveway.
Do we have a width requirement for it to be? I mean, I'd like to keep it as wide as it is now, but There might be regulations to
Here's the
prevent that.
proposal that I put forth. The engineer put forth a proposal. 5 or 6 pull-offs, I think there were included. There were 5 or 6 pull-offs that were included to allow for traffic passing.
Mhm.
5 or 6, that's a lot for that length, yeah.
Well, but there's several places where sight is hard.
Okay,
And so we're trying to do as few as possible, but still allow for the site and that. What you don't want to have is people backing up and those kind of things if we can help it. There's not a lot of good places to do it. And Episcopal's concern when we met with them was that people would use it for parking. And so that is a concern that we have. If we do put pull-offs in, would people use it for parking? And we would have to, now am I looking at labeling this as no parking and those kind of things? And now am I adding, it's like, we're trying to keep it a certain look and a feel and yet make it usable. And so we're going to have to work through that. They even suggested that maybe we not put the pull-offs in and just let people do it. My concern is that if it's inclement weather, at some point we're potentially creating ruts and things like that become harder to maintain. I do not want to make it a 2-lane road in and out. That's not my goal. And so we're going to have to work through. There's a lot of things we still have to work through on that side of it. And hopefully end up in a spot that makes sense.
thank you. It was a good update. That was a lot of good information, so thank you. Sounds like, so did Episcopal join the meeting or was it just?
No, we met out there. I wanted
Okay.
to have an understanding before I went to them what
Okay.
the issues were. We're pretty close to a spot, I think, where we're ready to go and have the conversations with them. I just would like a little bit better understanding of what the dollar values are before I go.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything? Mr. Carr, Mr. Falcon, anybody?
Oh, thank you for that update.
All right, thank you. Moving on to old business, so just the recurring one this month, oh, that's not good. Bear with me one moment, I opened up the PDF and it, for some reason, had my PDF viewer had an issue. Here we go. All right, so next item for this month's review of the network plan was the support for the plan. So brought it up. I, wasn't even in the township when it was created, but since and all the events that we've gone to, there's a lot of people that don't even know it exists, but we're talking like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's great. I didn't even know they did that. Didn't even know about the committee. But bottom line is the reason I brought it up is because they were talking about these very issues when they talked about the trails, green spaces. They said trails and greenways, like, what is that? And started bringing it up. So the support was obviously there to create the committee. A lot of people, because of lack of access to be able to walk from neighborhood to neighborhood, and a lot of people that were upset about some of the overdevelopment and some of the formerly, kind of large, majestic green spaces. So the public support is definitely there, kind of echoed in here. There's not a whole lot of numbers and different things that I could go through from like how I have in previous meetings, but the township had public meetings and solicited information from residents to be able to get the support originally for creating this plan. And at least at our events, obviously, we've had really good luck with getting the word out and getting as many people as possible interested in what's going on. The big noticeable change, at least I have seen, and Terry, I don't know if you've noticed this either, is there's been more family action, I think, than when we first started. I've noticed that. I don't know if it's just anecdotal on my part. But I don't know if anybody else has had similar conversations with parents and kids, and a lot of the residents in our neighborhood that have asked me about this committee, a couple of them have come to the meetings. Last meeting, we had one. They all have young kids in an age where they want them to be able to safely walk. So that seems to be at least a huge priority. I've noticed a huge turnover in the neighborhood that I live in, just in a few years of a lot of older generation people retiring, passing away, and the houses are turning over to younger families with kids that are all in that age. So the support, I think, will only increase with time, because you have a generation of people moving into the retirement years where they like to be outside and they like to walk and they like to enjoy nature. And at the same time, you've got families moving in and people creating their own families in the township. So I'm hoping that the support just continues to grow. And I think at a bare minimum, our events that we do are a way of continually finding out the public interest. It's like almost a nice barometer to be able to continually check on what the interest is like. So it's a good thing we're doing it. We need to keep doing it. And that's kind of all I have for this month with public support. There's a little bit that was done on like surveys and things like that, but overall, it seems like a lot of people really care about the exercise, and I'm sure COVID really made a big play in that after the fact.
And I think is a good thing to talk about when we have tables. I mean,
Yep.
Make people aware that we have this document, tell them where they can get it online, and maybe provide excerpts.
And the banner,
And look at it.
the banner was really helpful with that, and having the QR codes, Terry, where people realized they could just go scan that QR code, get to the website, be able to download the plan, be able to look at it. Mostly, I think people really just want to see the trail maps more than anything, and the green space that we've identified. That was the two questions that we got when we had the farmers market table, and we were pushing people to the website.
Yeah.
Is everyone was like, is that where I can find this trail map? Because I think we had a printed version out on the table.
Where is that now? Because I'd like to see that at the table at,
The banner.
no, the map.
Why don't you give us a couple of printouts of that? Then
Well, you're talking about the banner?
I'm talking about the map.
I've got.
The map.
Shows,
Trail map.
Oh,
who does?
from you.
Okay.
Would you mind giving us? Is that something? I can probably, but it's so big, I don't have any way to copy it.
If I see which one it was I gave you, then we can probably make a copy of it.
Come to Garrett Williamson on the 11th.
So I'll bring what I have to you. And we'll figure out how to get 2 or 3 copies. I do have the plan. So I can bring that. Yeah.
Good.
I agree with you, everything you said. That's happens at all of the walks, whether it's the Don Guanella walk or Okahocking or any environment external. Find out where's the next one, what's the town doing, drag their babies.
Yep.
One person who's really important in that is Annie Thorne. Out here, she always has a baby with her and a toddler and her husband. They're huge advocates for all things wolf. It's nice to have those.
And I think on that point too, it's worth mentioning that, you know, we are being asked about the progress that this committee's making. And when you look at a trail map, have we been able to create connectivity between trails? Have we been able to increase green space? Have we built any new trails? So I think it's just worth noting that, you know, for 2 years now, we've really been working on awareness and doing trail walks. And I think more and more people in the township are becoming aware of this committee. The fact that it was, you know, brought into existence by the township is important. And people want to know, you know, what progress are we making? What are we able to execute on?
Is there a map that the township has that shows basically existing trails and parks and bike lanes? I mean, not proposed stuff, not all the other stuff laid on top, but what we actually have right now that a resident can access and be like, oh, I can ride my bike from here to here, or I could walk this trail from here to here, to that park, or anything like that.
I know one of the maps on the website has all the parks and it has all the trails. I don't believe it has the bike
I was
lanes
gonna
on
say,
it.
I don't remember the bike lanes, but.
I think most of that might have
That would
come out
not
of
be a
plan,
hard ad
but that's small stuff.
if we wanted that.
So, one of the things that we're trying to do with these social media posts, to kind of briefly go back to that, is to, when we had the social media posts, one of the things that we're trying to do is embed the link to our township, to the township committee page on the township network, so that people can find this stuff. So that's something that should be included, just for reference of everybody. In your social media posts, that should always be the last thing, is if you want to learn more about, you know, the green spaces and trails and things that we're doing in the township, go here. Very simple, doesn't have to be too complicated to add to the girth of the post, but that is something that's important. So people know what this committee is, where it's coming from. The social media posts will hopefully be a good way of getting more people involved.
One side was Greenways, one side was.
I've just been, when I've been meeting people that ask the question, if we're out on the walk stuff, I've literally asked them for their information and emailed them the link, because that's, you know, all I had at the time. But I should find a way to get that QR code maybe just on my phone, so that people can just scan it and be able to jump to it quickly that way. Yeah, it's on the banner, so maybe we have the banner up, I can get a picture of it, that'd be good. Yep, okay, thank you. All right, we go back to the minutes, the meeting agenda. So that's kind of it. Does anybody else have anything they want to comment on that particular item with the open space network plan before we move on? No? Okay. Public comment? Nobody in the audience. We're no longer accepting the emails. Items for next agenda. We already talked about approving the September 7th minutes. E-bikes and zoning will come up again. And then we have the recurring items. Is there anything else that anybody would specifically like to have put on next month's meeting that we have not covered? No? Joe, Mark?
Nothing for me.
I think we might have lost Joe. Okay.
No, nothing on my end. Thanks.
Oh, there you go. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Hearing no additional, do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion. Seconded, all in favor? Aye.
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 All right.